The sun hung low over the blood-soaked fields of Jeju Island on June 7, 1945, casting long shadows across the faces of 20-year-old U.S. Marine Corps Private First Class Thomas Walker and 14-year-old Ji-Soo Han. As the sound of gunfire echoed in the distance, Thomas felt the weight of his rifle heavy against his chest, his heart pounding with each breath. Across the valley, enemy soldiers under the command of the ruthless Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto, aged 35, closed in on the small village where Ji-Soo and her older sister, Mi-kyung, sought refuge. The air was thick with tension. Failure to protect these two innocent girls could mean not only their deaths, but also the annihilation of their entire community. Nearly 200 souls caught in the crossfire of this relentless conflict. With a steely resolve, Thomas knew he was not just fighting for survival. He was standing against the tide of history, tasked with an impossible choice as the village elder approached him with a shocking ultimatum that could change everything. The elder, a stoic man with deep lines etched in his face from years of hardship, leaned closer and spoke in a low voice. "Private Walker, you must understand. If the Japanese troops reach the village, they will not simply take the girls. They will slaughter everyone." The elder paused, his eyes darting nervously. "We are willing to offer you a sacrifice, a means to barter for their protection. In exchange for Ji-Soo and Mi-kyung, we will provide you with food supplies and the location of hidden Japanese positions." Thomas felt a chill crawl down his spine. The elder's ultimatum was unbearable, a heavy price to pay for the lives of two sisters. "You cannot be serious," Thomas replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You're asking me to hand them over to save the others?" The weight of the decision bore down on him. The lives of the girls weighed heavily against his duty to his fellow Marines, a choice that twisted his gut in knots. "We have no choice, Private Walker," the elder insisted, his voice strained. "The Japanese are coming. They will destroy everything in their path. You have to decide quickly." Time was slipping away, and the sounds of battle were creeping closer, rattling his resolve. Thomas looked towards Ji-Soo and Mi-kyung, who were huddled together, their faces pale and wide with fear. They were just children trying to survive in a world turned upside down by war. As darkness fell, the last rays of sun vanished behind the mountains, leaving the village in shadow. Thomas weighed the alternative. What would happen should he defy the elder? If he failed and the villagers suffered for it, the guilt would never leave him. But the thought of surrendering Ji-Soo and Mi-kyung to the Japanese troops made his stomach churn. The image of the sisters' terrified faces haunted him. "Please, Thomas, don't let them take us," Ji-Soo pleaded, her voice trembling. The desperation in her eyes struck a chord deep within him. Thomas turned sharply to the elder, his decision burning in his heart. "I cannot give them up," he stated firmly, his voice unwavering despite the fear clawing at him. "I will fight to protect them, no matter the cost." The elder regarded him with a mix of admiration and sorrow, understanding the burden Thomas had chosen to carry. "Then we will stand with you, Private Walker. We will not let our village fall without a fight." As Thomas prepared for the impending storm, a fierce wave of determination washed over him. He would do everything in his power to protect Ji-Soo and Mi-kyung, knowing full well that the night ahead would demand all his courage and resolve. The battle for their lives was just beginning. Enjoying? Subscribe and click hype. Thomas surveyed the narrow dirt road that wound through the village, his eyes scanning the horizon for signs of danger. The villagers moved hurriedly, driven by fear, their faces painted with desperation as they prepared for the impending assault. He could hear their whispers, the soft cries of mothers clutching their children, pleading for safety. Every instinct in him screamed to protect Ji-Soo and Mi-kyung, who clung to each other, their wide eyes reflecting the chaos surrounding them. As the sun sank lower, casting an eerie glow over the village elder, an elderly man with a weathered face and trembling hands, approached Thomas. His gait was slow but resolute, and the lines etched deep in his skin told stories of loss and survival. Thomas straightened, ready to hear what the elder had to say, but he was not prepared for the ultimatum that followed. "Please, Marine," the elder's voice quivered. "You must make a choice. The Japanese soldiers will not show mercy. They've demanded the elder sister, Mikyung, as a hostage. If you do not comply, the village will pay the price." Thomas's heart sank. He had witnessed the horrors of war, but this was different. A life weighed against many others, a choice that could haunt him for eternity. "I can't just hand over Mikyung," Thomas replied, his voice barely above a whisper, filled with defiance. "They're innocent. They have done nothing to deserve this." "Then what will you do?" the elder pressed, desperation etched in every word. "If you do not act, we will all be slaughtered, the children, the elderly, everyone. You are our only hope." A fire ignited in Thomas's chest, fueled by the determination to protect those who had already suffered too much. He glanced at Jisoo, whose small frame shook with fear. She was just a child, yet the burden of their survival rested on his shoulders. "I will find a way to protect them. I promise you that," Thomas finally declared, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the evening air. As darkness enveloped the village, Thomas gathered the villagers in a huddle, outlining a plan to fortify their defenses. "We will create distractions, and I will find a way to lead them away from here," Thomas instructed, his military training kicking in. The villagers listened intently, their eyes shining with a glimmer of hope as Thomas organized a makeshift perimeter with whatever they could find. Wooden planks, barrels, and stones. "We can hold them back," Thomas said, his voice steady, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. "But we must work together." With each passing moment, the distant echoes of marching feet grew louder, a grim reminder of the approaching danger. Mikyung stepped forward, her older sisterly instincts kicking in. "I can help. I know the back paths through the woods. If we create a diversion, we can escape." "No," Thomas interjected firmly, though he admired her bravery. "I can't risk your lives. Stay close to me and don't stray. I'll find a way." The tension in the air crackled like electricity as the first shots rang out, the Japanese soldiers finally making their move. Thomas felt a rush of adrenaline, his heart racing as he took a deep breath, clenching his fist around his rifle. He was ready to fight, ready to protect Jisoo and Mikyung at all costs. As the bullets flew and chaos erupted around him, Thomas knew this was the moment that would define their fate. He launched into action, adrenaline surging through his veins, determined to shield the sisters from the horrors that war had unleashed. He wasn't fighting just for survival. He was fighting for hope, for humanity, and for the innocent lives caught in the crossfire of a brutal conflict. As the sun dipped lower, casting an ominous glow over the jagged landscape, Thomas tightened his grip on his rifle and scanned the surroundings. The ominous sounds of distant gunfire drew closer, and the urgency of the situation weighed heavily on him. Jisoo, her wide eyes filled with fear, clutched her sister Mikyung's hand, seeking comfort in the face of impending doom. Thomas knelt down to their level, forcing a reassuring smile that belied the chaos around them. "Stay close to me," Thomas urged, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "We'll find a way out of this together." Mikyung nodded, pressing Jisoo's hand tighter against her own, her protective instincts kicking in. Thomas could see the flickering determination in Mikyung's eyes, a reflection of her resolve. As they all huddled behind the crumbling remains of a stone wall that had once been part of a quaint village home. The remnants of their lives were now reduced to memories, scattered like the debris around them. In the growing twilight, the silhouettes of Japanese soldiers began to form in the distance, moving with precision and discipline. Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto marched with an air of authority, his sharp gaze searching for signs of resistance. Thomas knew that Yamamoto had little regard for human life. He was a man hardened by war and driven by a desire to crush any sign of defiance. The knowledge sent a chill down Thomas's spine, but he couldn't let fear dictate his actions. "Thomas," Jisoo whispered, her voice trembling. "What if they find us?" "Then we fight," Thomas replied, his resolve unwavering. "But we won't let that happen. I promise to protect you both." The weight of his promise hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting their fates. Suddenly, the village elder, a frail man named Mr. Choi, emerged from the shadows. His face was lined with worry as he approached, urgency in his steps. Thomas recognized the elder as a pillar of the community, a man who had lived through countless struggles, yet always found a way to endure. "Thomas," Mr. Choi said, his voice a strained whisper, "I've just come from the council. We have an ultimatum. Yamamoto wants the two girls. If we don't surrender them, he will annihilate the village." Thomas felt his stomach drop. The thought of sacrificing Jisoo and Mikyung to appease the enemy was unthinkable. "No, we can't let that happen," he said fiercely, his fists clenching around the rifle. "There must be another way. The council believes it's the only option," Mr. Choi insisted, desperation creeping into his tone. "I can't let them die, Thomas. But you must understand, if we refuse, then we stand and fight." Thomas interjected, his heart racing. "I can't abandon these girls. They deserve a chance, just like all of us." Mr. Choi's gaze dropped to the ground, conflicted. "You're a brave young man, but it's a gamble. If you lose—" Thomas stood taller, determination fueling his words. "I won't lose. I refuse to let fear dictate our actions. We can find a way to outsmart them. We'll hide, we'll fight, and above all, we'll protect these sisters." With each passing second, the urgency of the moment intensified. The shouts of the advancing troops grew louder, merging with the pounding of Thomas's heart. He looked at Jisoo and Mikyung, their faces pale yet resolute. The decision had to be made quickly. He would not let Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto dictate their fates. They would fight for their lives, and Thomas was ready to stand against the tide that threatened to engulf them all. As darkness settled over the valley, Thomas felt the chill of impending danger grip his heart. He crouched low behind the crumbling wall of the village, his breath shallow as he observed the flickering shadows of the Japanese soldiers moving closer. Jisoo, her small face pale with fear, was huddled beside him, clutching her sister Mikyung's hand tightly. The bond between the two sisters mirrored the resolve that burned within Thomas. He couldn't let them down. "Thomas," Jisoo whispered, her voice shaking, "what if they come for us? What if they find us?" Thomas turned to the young girl, his heart aching at the innocent fear in her eyes. "I promise, Jisoo, I won't let anything happen to you or Mikyung. You have to trust me." Just then, the village elder approached, his face etched with worry as he knelt beside Thomas. "U.S.Marine, I have an ultimatum that may change the course of this night. The Japanese troops are demanding sacrifice. One of the sisters must be handed over to protect the rest of the village. It is their only way to ensure our safety." Thomas's pulse quickened at the implication of the elder's words. The thought of betraying Jisoo or Mikyung gnawed at him like a ravenous beast. "You can't be serious. We can't give them one of the girls." His voice was a fierce whisper, filled with desperation. The elder's eyes reflected the deep sorrow of a man torn between loyalty to his people and the instinct to protect the innocent. "I understand your anger, but you do not know the extent of what they are willing to do. They will burn the village to the ground. They will kill everyone. We have little time. Then we fight," Thomas asserted, his jaw set with determination. "We will not let them take anyone. I'm not leaving without both sisters." His thoughts drifted back to home, the dreams he had of peace and normalcy. But here, on the edge of calamity, those dreams felt like distant echoes. The elder shook his head, guilt and fear mingling in his expression. You are brave, young Marine, but bravery alone will not save us. We must act swiftly and strategically. Before Thomas could argue further, the distant sounds of boots crunching on gravel echoed ominously, drawing closer. His instincts kicked in, he needed to act. Get Jisoo and Mikyung to the hidden cellar, Thomas instructed urgently. I'll hold them off as long as I can. No, we will not leave you, Jisoo pleaded, her grip tightening on Thomas's arm. Listen to me, Thomas said fiercely, locking eyes with Jisoo. You have to survive. I can't protect you if you're exposed. Trust that I'll find a way to come back for you. You must trust me. With tears glistening in her eyes, Jisoo finally nodded, her resolve hardening amidst the fear. Mikyung wrapped an arm around her younger sister's shoulders, bolstering her courage. We will go, she said, her voice steady despite the quaking in her heart. We will wait for you, Thomas. As the girls slipped away toward the cellar, Thomas turned his focus to the approaching shadows of Japanese soldiers. The dim light of dusk made the air feel even thicker, but he could not show fear. He took a deep breath, raised his rifle, and readied himself for the fight ahead. He would not let Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto take another innocent life. Not today. With the weight of the decision pressing heavily on his conscience, Thomas steadied his hand, the rifle firmly gripped in his calloused fingers. The sounds of distant gunfire grew louder, echoing the urgency of the moment, mingling with the distant cries of villagers seeking shelter. Jisoo's frightened eyes locked onto his, a mixture of hope and desperation reflected in their depths. Thomas promised himself that he would not let fear guide his actions. He had to protect her and her sister at all costs. As the first wave of Japanese soldiers advanced into the outskirts of the village, their disciplined lines cutting through the underbrush like a sharp knife, Thomas made a split-second decision. He needed to act decisively to stall their advance. Jisoo, stay close to me, Thomas instructed, his voice steady yet soft, trying to reassure her despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The young girl nodded, her small frame trembling beside him. He could not help but admire her bravery, even in the face of such overwhelming terror. With a grim determination, Thomas adjusted his position behind a crumbling stone wall, its surface stained with the remnants of past battles. He focused on the approaching enemy, identifying the lead soldier, a menacing figure clad in a tattered uniform. Thomas took a deep breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report a deafening roar in the stillness of the moment. The soldier dropped instantly, a lifeless body crumpling to the ground. The sight sent a jolt of adrenaline through Thomas, but it also hardened his resolve. Each life he saved was a small victory, a flicker of hope amid the chaos of war. With no time to waste, he called out to the villagers, urging them to retreat further into the alleys and hidden corners of the village. Move, now, Thomas shouted, the urgency in his voice cutting through the fear that had gripped them all. But then, from the shadows emerged the figure of the village elder, an old man with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of generations. Thomas, the elder called, his voice cracking like a breaking twig. We must speak. Thomas looked at him, aware of the life or death stakes. The elder's expression was grave, yet there was a flicker of something else, desperation, maybe, or a determined resolve not easily dismissed. Time is running out, the elder continued, urgency etched into every word. If you cannot protect Jisoo and Mikyung, we must consider alternative arrangements. His words hung in the air, heavy with implications that made Thomas's stomach churn. He realized the elder was not just talking about surrender but about a potential sacrifice. To save the majority, a few must be cast aside. No! Thomas snapped, anger flaring in his chest. I will not abandon them. These are innocent children. He looked back at Jisoo, whose eyes widened, fear transforming into a tangible entity between them. The elder's face softened, but his resolve remained unyielding. Sometimes we must make choices no one wants to make, Thomas. We do not have the power to fight this war alone. The elder's voice lowered, filled with grief. You must understand the cost of our survival. Thomas's heart pounded in his ears, the reality of the elder's words crashing over him like a wave. The battle was closing in on them, and with each passing moment, Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto would be one step closer to achieving his ruthless goal. Thomas stood at a precipice, caught between duty and the instinct to protect. A line drawn in blood and desperation, with no easy answers in sight. The lives of Jisoo and Mikyung, of the entire village, rested on his shoulders, and he would not let history judge him for the choices he was forced to confront. The moon hung high over Jeju Island, casting an eerie glow across the fields that were once vibrant with life, but now lay desolate, scarred by the ravages of war. As the sounds of distant gunfire faded, Thomas felt the oppressive weight of the ultimatum the village elder had placed upon him. The elder's demand echoed in his mind. Either let Jisoo and Mikyung fall into the hands of the Japanese troops, or carry out a desperate plan that could lead to their safety at an unimaginable cost. Standing in the village square, Thomas turned to face Jisoo, who was standing defiantly before him. The determination in her gaze was unmistakable, but it was laced with fear. You don't understand, Thomas. They will kill us. You can't let them take us. Not after everything we've been through. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was fire in her words. Thomas felt his heart wrench at the sight of Jisoo's terror. He had seen the brutality of war firsthand, and the thought of those innocent girls being subjected to it sent a chill down his spine. Yet confronting Jisoo publicly wasn't just about saving her. It was about standing up against the very forces that sought to destroy her community and defining what kind of man he would be in the face of such darkness. Jisoo, you have to trust me, Thomas said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions within him. We need to stick together, and I need to know that you'll be safe. I can't promise you that I can keep you both from harm if you resist. You must listen to me. At that moment, the serenity of the night was shattered by the sound of marching boots. Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto's troops were advancing. Thomas felt a surge of adrenaline. There was no more time for words. Mikyung, he shouted, directing his voice to Jisoo's sister, who had been silent and pale with fear, clutching her younger siblings. And get them to the tunnel. It's the only way out of here. But Jisoo shook her head vehemently, her dark hair whipping in the wind. No, this is our home. We can't just run away and leave our people. We have to fight. Fight, Thomas repeated incredulously, glancing back toward the approaching soldiers. You'll be slaughtered. You don't understand the consequences of standing against them. With her voice rising above the cacophony of distant shots, Jisoo replied fiercely, And what about our elders, our families? If we don't stand up, they'll take everything from us. We must do something, Thomas. As the threats of violence drew closer, Thomas's frustration boiled over. You think it's easy for me? I'm just a Marine. I can't hold off an entire battalion. But I will not let you throw your lives away. In the heart of chaos, Jisoo's fierce resolve struck a chord within Thomas. He had been taught to protect, to fight until the last breath, but standing before these two sisters, he knew that protecting sometimes meant making impossible choices. I will not let you die. I will fight with you, he announced, his eyes locking onto Jisoo's. The defiance in Jisoo's gaze began to soften. You'll fight, she whispered, doubt creeping into her voice, mixing with a glimmer of hope. Yes, Thomas affirmed, taking a firm step forward, the rifle held against his chest as he prepared to face the incoming storm. Together, we can make our stand. But you have to trust me. Follow my lead. In that moment, the tension between them shifted. A bond formed in the flames of adversity. They stood united, ready to confront the encroaching darkness. As sounds of the enemy forces drew nearer, the moment of truth upon them. And as they prepared for battle, Thomas felt an unbreakable strength surge within him, knowing that whatever fate awaited them, they would face it together. They stood united, ready to confront the encroaching darkness as sounds of the enemy forces drew nearer, the moment of truth upon them. And as they prepared for battle, Thomas felt an unbreakable strength surge within him, knowing that whatever fate awaited them, they would face it together. The shadows of the trees danced ominously in the fading light, a stark reminder of the danger closing in. Thomas glanced at Jisoo, her young face etched with fear but also a fierce determination. He knew that her bravery mirrored his own, and it fortified his resolve to protect her and her sister, Mikyung, at all costs. As the first shots rang out, chaos erupted in the village. Thomas and Jisoo fell into the rhythm of war instinctively. Thomas, a Marine trained for combat, and Jisoo, who had learned to hide and survive in a war-torn world. The enemy was relentless, and with every passing moment, Thomas realized that the villagers depended on him. Their safety rested in his hands. With each shot fired, he could feel the fear and hope of the community surge through him. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, the dust settled, but the air was thick with grief and disbelief. Thomas had fought valiantly, managing to fend off Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto for the time being, but they had lost friends and neighbors in the fray. The village elder approached Thomas, his expression grave. "You've saved Jisoo and Mikyung, but at what cost?" he lamented, eyes reflecting the reality of their shared losses. Thomas felt the weight of the elder's words. They had survived, but the village was forever changed. In the months that followed, as the war dragged on, Thomas remained in the village alongside Jisoo and Mikyung. Their bond deepened amidst the ruins of their once peaceful life. They worked together to rebuild what had been lost, with Thomas helping to protect the villagers from further incursions. They formed a makeshift family, the girls finding solace in Thomas's unwavering support. But the memories of the battle haunted them. Jisoo often woke in the night, trembling from nightmares. Thomas would sit beside her, a comforting presence in the darkness, promising that they would be okay. As the war drew closer to its end, a sense of normalcy began to return. The community began to heal, but the scars remained. Thomas made plans to return to the United States, torn between duty to his country and the family he had found in Korea. Jisoo, now more confident, took on a leadership role among the children of the village. Her resilience inspired them, and Thomas often watched with pride as she fostered hope in her peers. Years later, Thomas returned to Jeju Island, a changed man. The scars of war had shaped him, and he carried those memories like a heavy cloak. The village had transformed, but it still bore reminders of their shared past. He sought out Jisoo, now a spirited leader, and Mikyung, who had grown into a talented artist. Their reunion was bittersweet. They embraced with tears of joy, each carrying their own burdens of memory and survival. Together, they honored their fallen friends and family, planting trees and creating a memorial in the village square. It was an act of remembrance and healing, a testament to the enduring bonds forged in the fires of conflict. Thomas learned to reconcile his past with his present, allowing the experiences that shaped him to live on in the memories they created together. In their shared moments of laughter and reflection, they crafted a new story, one not defined by war, but by resilience, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. What did you think? Comment and click hype.